Uh, I'm Austin Aries. I've been wrestling now for about 5.5 years. Started out in Minneapolis. Was kind of just getting out of college, and a buddy of mine called me kind of out of the blue, told me he was training up in Minneapolis, which was a few hours from where I was living, and I drove up and checked it out, and moved up on his couch a week later and started training. And that was year 2001.
I'm not really picking them up. I like right now.
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on here? What do you feel is like the biggest challenge for you as a pro wrestler?
For me personally, I think my biggest challenge is probably physical, as far as like not being real big, depending on where you go. Right now, WWE is the biggest promotion right now, and TNA is behind them. But it's kind of a big man sport for the most part. But I think there's a lot of guys now in this new generation that aren't heavyweights that are shown that they can entertain the people and put on good matches despite not being 6'4", 250.
What do you feel like? What do you feel is like the wave of the future of wrestling? Do you think it's going to be like, where do you see the business going in 5 years? Do you think it's all going to be these huge guys still, or do you think it's going to change?
No, I think it already is changing a little bit. I think the biggest thing right now is the competition factor. With TNA getting a slot nationally, and hopefully they can succeed to a point where you have competition against, and then everyone's fighting for the wrestling consumer's dollar, which means their product's going to get better and they're going to really listen to what the fans want. I think a mix, man. I mean, you need big guys in wrestling, absolutely, but I think you need a good mix of all size guys that are ripped, guys that are fat, guys that are hairy, guys that are waxed and tanned. You just need variety. Variety's a spice, and it gives a little flavor for everybody.
And when you talk, you could mainly look at the camera. That would be
Sure.
Be cool. What for you, like, there's a lot of challenges in wrestling, like, like being like an independent contractor.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think like a time will come where wrestlers form a union?
Man, that'd be nice if they did. I don't know if it's going to happen because there's no regulation on it right now. Anyone who can rent a ring and has a backyard can put on a wrestling show and get 12 of their closest friends to come over in their jean shorts and tennis shoes and put on a wrestling show. So I mean, until there's some kind of regulation, it's going to be hard to form a union. It'd be nice. I mean, you would definitely like to have some benefits. I mean, and it's not easy getting health insurance. Telling people what you do for a living, you tell them you're a professional wrestler. They're not too apt to go out there and give you the health insurance that you really want. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully it works out. Hopefully we can get something together in the next 10 years. This next crop of guys can kind of band together and get something going.
How do wrestlers form a union? Like, do you know the process, or do you know how it happens?
I don't know, man. I've never been a part. I was a part of a union once when I had my very first job bagging groceries, and it was kind of funny because I was 16 at the time and I was paying union dues, but you had to be 18 to collect any union benefits. So I was paying for something I couldn't even benefit from. It was kind of ridiculous.
What do you have any dreams as a pro wrestler? Like something you want to accomplish?
I'm already living my dream, man. I'm making a living being a professional wrestler. I mean, I've watched wrestling since I was 4 years old AWA stuff back in the real early 80s, and I always loved it. It was my thing, but I never really thought I could do it as a career, and the opportunity presented itself, and man, I just haven't looked back because I'm having a blast. I don't mind the lifestyle. I like to travel, and shit, man, I get to wrestle for a living. I don't have to go work some 9 to 5 desk job or factory job. I get to do something I love to do. So every day I wake up and I'm thankful for that.
Is there any like big goals that you see in your future that you really want to accomplish?
I don't know. I just want to have a long, healthy career. I just want to stay healthy and have fun. I mean, I've already succeeded probably a lot of things I thought I would have done from the initial start. I've already worked for WWE and had a match in a WWE ring. I'm working for TNA now. I'm working for Ring of Honor, which is a great company. I've been on TV. I've been in magazines. So I mean, I've pretty much done just about everything I want. I just want to keep doing it. I want to do this for another 20, 25, 30 years. You know, when my wrestling days are done, maybe I'll do other things, whether it's promoting or booking or announcing or managing. Who knows?
When you were a young kid, like growing up watching AWA and maybe some WWF, like who were your icons or your idols?
Initially, like AWA, I mean, I think Heenan was the first guy that really, even the stuff he was doing there, and then, yeah, guys like Jerry Blackwell were entertaining, and just because he was so big, but the guy could do a drop kick for Christ's sake. But then as I started watching a lot of NWA growing up, I loved the Horsemen, and I mean, who didn't love the Horsemen? Nikita Koloff, Muda when he came in. Those are probably some of the guys that I really enjoyed watching the most.
I think like Magnum Ta was in AWA.
I'm not sure he was in AWA. He was in the NWA for sure.
Oh, okay.
NWA for a while. He was like the next big thing, man. He was gonna be. He said it like he had the good looks, he had good size, good charisma, and then he had the car accident, which kind of cut his career short, which is unfortunate because that guy had the whole package.
Yeah, like I said, we got him in the documentary.
Right on.
What's your opinion on the internet? Like, how has that affected pro wrestling?
It's completely kind of changed everything. It's been a double-edged sword. I mean, in one aspect, it's really been great because a company like Ring of Honor, which basically runs on the East Coast and some of the Midwest, but is all over the world. I get emails from Israel, Italy, all over Europe and Asia, and people saying that they've seen Ring of Honor, and the only way they've seen it is through the internet, because they're an internet kind of based company. So the internet connects the world. So a lot of things we're doing here in the States, people all over the world are seeing, which is a great thing. A lot of smaller companies have been able to profit by using the internet for advertising, for selling their DVDs, things like that. So it's been a great tool. And then on the flip side is you have people who hide behind their keyboards and pretend that they know what the business is about and they know what it's like to be in a ring, and they criticize everything, and they're just trying to pick it apart. And so now I think a lot of people watch wrestling differently than they used to. They don't watch it necessarily. The entertainment form they're getting out of it's completely different. As opposed to suspend their disbelief and watching the performance, they're watching to nitpick it and say what was wrong and how they could have done it better. But it's all done behind a computer. It's all no, I don't know. It's kind of messed up.
Have you ever worked in Japan or Mexico?
Worked in Mexico once. Haven't had the pleasure to go to Japan yet. Talked to some companies, but things just haven't worked out. But Mexico was fun. It was just kind of an in and out type thing, and just a lot different down there, man. And it's just, man, those guys down there work 6-7 days a week just to kind of make a little money because there's not a lot to do around. So, hopefully get to go back and do it again sometime.
Do you have any stories of ribs you maybe have pulled on other wrestlers, or ribs that you've had pulled on you?
Do I want to admit to anything that I've done? Is that what you're asking me?
Pretty much.
Or do I want to admit that I've been duped? I know a guy, and there was these belts back in the Midwest that when you won the belt, the guy who won the belts wanted everyone to sign a disclaimer, basically saying that you keep the belt on you, but if anything happened to it, you were liable for any damages or if it broke or anything. And this guy was trying to get this other guy to sign it, and he refused. He was like, "No way, I can't. You keep the belt. I don't want to take this belt with me and be responsible for it because I have bad luck." And then there's this other wrestler who won like the heavyweight version of the belt. And he signed the thing, man, and he was gung ho. He was going to carry that belt with him and probably post it up on his fridge, like it was his A paper from English class. But so as a rib, a couple of the guys after the match, when the belt was in his bag, there was a big schmaz, so he was out at ringside, and they stole the belt. And it was just supposed to be a quick little 2 or 3 day rib, let him sweat it out because now he was liable for this, $3,500 belt. And it turned out to be about 3 or 4 months because they didn't see the guy, and they were going to call the police, and they were trying to figure out who stole the belt. And it was finally returned safe and sound, and no harm was done, and no lawsuits were filed, so it was all good.
So you took the belt, or what?
I don't know who took the belt, but I did find the belt and returned it safely, but I don't know who took it.
All right. What about I always ask this of wrestlers. If you don't want to answer it, I'll edit it out. Like, let me get this out. No problem here. And like you're even wearing the right shirt, the Dare shirt. Like it's like a lot of people think like the drugs that like come one and one with the wrestling industry. What's your opinion on all that?
I don't think it's, I mean, drugs are everywhere, man. I mean, hey, my shirt there. Just keep kids off drugs. You should keep them off Ritalin and Prozac and all that pharmaceutical bullshit that they put kids on when they're 7. So by the time they're 12, they're dependent on this shit and they're zombies. I'm not saying that there aren't people out there that need that stuff, but it's just so overprescribed now. If a kid can't sit still for 2 seconds, you give him a pill. Back when I was a kid, if I couldn't sit still, I got slapped on the ass and told to sit still. It's just, I don't know, we've become a drug culture. Everything's a drug. Soda's a drug, caffeine, nicotine, fast food's a drug. But we like to single out certain drugs that are bad for you, but they just happen to be plants that grow naturally. Anyway, I digress. As far as drugs in wrestling, I mean, sure, to some extent, the lifestyle is gonna kind of be indicative of, you're in pain a lot, so maybe you want to take this, you want that, but it really comes on the individual, man. Drugs are everywhere. You don't need to be a professional wrestler to be on drugs. There's a lot of white and blue collar professionals that, and at the end of the day, they come home from either the office or the factory and they divulge in some kind of drugs. I mean, I don't know. I think it's just that back in the day, I think, you had this, wrestlers were kind of that rock star mentality, so they had, the limousines and the planes and the women, and so they go out and they party, and maybe it was a little to the excess. So at the end of the day, it comes down to the individual, man. You all make your own decisions, and whether you're talking about steroids as drugs, or you're talking about pain pills as drugs, or booze as drugs, alcohol as a drug, or you pick your poisons, man. Some guy might decide that he wants to smoke marijuana and take steroids, but not drink or not take aspirin or do anything else, and then someone else might decide they want to eat McDonald's 5 days a week and drink 6 Pepsis a day and smoke a pack of cigarettes. Who's worse off?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know.
Where do you see the business going in 5 years?
It's hard to say, man, because right now it's all uncharted territories. Like, we're just, for a while, like this last 7 years, like there's been one show in town, and like that's never happened. Like there's always been some kind of competition. There's always been something. So, like right now, everything's different. So it's hard to predict what will be in 5 years. I could see something where, you see how like the MMA and the shoot fighting is becoming kind of popular. Maybe you see where it kind of gets mixed in with wrestling, and wrestling's more presented in that form, because I mean the mixed martial arts and stuff. That stuff's going to end up being a work sooner or later anyway, because you just make more money doing it. If it's not already being worked, which I'm sure it is. So that could be one way it goes. Or this new with TNA being on TV could create the next boom, and the business could flourish, and lots of guys can make money, and the next big stars could be created. You don't know. Right now everything's on uncharted territories. So, hopefully, I think there's definitely a core of guys. Like there's a good core of 25 guys that I've kind of recognized as like the next group of guys that are going to kind of shape this business in the next 20 years. So, as we kind of all come to the surface and do our thing, we'll see where we take it.
Who is the future of the business, in your opinion?
A lot of guys, man. The Samoa Joes and the AJ Styles and the Christopher Daniels and the Austin Aries and the CM Punks, and the list goes on. And if I'm missing a few of you guys, I apologize. But it's just those guys that really have that passion for the business. The guys that aren't in it because they can make a buck or because they look a certain way and they think they can be good wrestlers. They're the guys that have watched this shit since whenever, and they love the business, and they go out there and they put their heart into it every night. And no matter what obstacles are put in their way, they're going to fight through it, and they're going to be in this business, until they decide to get out.
What's your opinion of backyard wrestling? Did you ever do that, or?
No, I didn't, man. Like when I first got in the business, I was really like, man, backyarders, like that's just so wrong, and it really is, because like the thing you got to realize is a lot of guys like not only pay like their financial dues to be trained properly, talking about whatever you got to pay for your training, but then they pay their dues setting up rings, tearing it down, and doing all that shit backstage, to get their shots. So like when someone just kind of takes the back door in by backyarding it, it's kind of slapping the face to all those guys that paid their dues to get in the business the right way. It's kind of one way to look at it, you know. It kind of be like being a scab baseball player, you know, like everyone's on strike and you just kind of waltz in kind of the back door when everyone else has been paying their dues. So, and from a standpoint too, it's just like this shit is dangerous, you know, and guys have gotten hurt, and on the flip side, a lot of guys have gotten in the business through backyard wrestling. So how do you tell people not to do it when people have, you know, succeeded doing it? It's like telling guys not to jump to the NBA when straight out of high school, when guys like Jermaine O'Neal or Kobe Bryant are making millions of dollars. You know, shit, they're gonna do it. You know, but you know, I mean, it's cool. You love wrestling. You want to get in the backyard with some of your friends. And you want to horse around and this and that, and that's one thing. But to run shows and pretend like you're a professional wrestler or like a professional promotion, that's what's right now what's wrong with wrestling, because back in the day it was a fraternity. It wasn't easy to get in the business. You know, if you weren't trained by someone that was reputable, that everyone knew, you couldn't go work in a territory. You couldn't just waltz in with your gear and get a match. You know, and somewhere along the lines that fraternity was broken, and now any Tom, Dick, or Joe can get in the business and sell a few tickets and get on the card. And after 3 matches, they're trained and they're in the business and they don't have a fucking clue. So if you want to be in the business, you want to horse around the backyard, but at some point, man, you gotta go get trained professionally. You gotta learn how to do it the right way and pay your dues.
Like the last question is like, how has the monopoly of the wrestling business like affected you and other young guys out there trying to like break in and make like something really big happen?
Sure. Well, I mean, the thing with the monopoly is there's only so many spots open, right? I mean, there's one show in town. And with that comes along their brand. Like the way they want to present professional wrestling as their form of entertainment is completely different than a lot of other companies would. You know, for me growing up watching WWE, it always seemed very over the top and very cartoonish, as opposed to NWA, which seemed really like wrestling, like, you know, just dark arenas, you know, wrestling, you know. And so with this kind of with the one company, you know, like all the masses were exposed to was this one flavor, which was a big man dominated physique and character and skit kind of entertainment brand, as opposed to the action being what's going on in the ring, you know. So I think hopefully, you know, if there can be some alternatives where maybe the entertainment's more of what's in the ring as opposed to all the other you know, fluff,